Alright, so welcome to the review of section 4.3. In case you had any questions on it or just wanted to review it. So I'm just going to do number 1 real quick. So negative 2.45 minus negative 3.9. Now these parentheses, once again, is just to group it off. We don't 100% need it. You only need it when it's like right next to it. If this wasn't here, it'd be a multiplication. Okay, it'd be negative 2.45 times negative 3.9. But since we have an operation there, we do not need it. I'm just going to let you know that. And the reason why it's going to be helpful to just kind of disregard it for a sec is because then we can recognize, all right, what's happening in this question? We're subtracting a negative number, and just to remind us from the previous chapter, module 3, when we subtract negative numbers, we're adding a negative number, okay? It turns into addition when we subtract. When you have a double negative, it becomes a positive, alright? So I'm just going to go ahead and connect these and turn it into an addition operation, okay? So that's step 1. Identify what the operation is, see what's happening with the negatives. If it's a double positive, turn it into a plus, and then you're good to go. So now we have negative 2.45 plus 3.9. Now, that's when you got to get ready and be like, okay, situate yourself before you use your trick. I'm like, imagine you're at negative 2.45 on the number line, yeah? If you go that way, 3.9 times, you're going to pass 0, because if I'm at negative 2.45, if I add 2.45, I get to 0, but 3.9 is bigger. So I'm gonna pass 0, get into a kind of a small positive number here. So the trick is subtract, okay? Subtract, but keep the sign of the bigger number, or the bigger absolute value, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and subtract, but you always have to keep track of your signs. Remember, a sign is whether it's positive or negative. You just always want to keep track of them, okay? Okay, so I'm going to be like, here, I'm just going to do 3.9 minus 2.45. Going to put a 0 in the blank spaces, make sure my decimal points are lined up. Yeah? Now this becomes 8, and we have 10, so this becomes 5. 8 minus 4, 4 point, and then 1. So positive 1.45. Okay? Cool. So now I'm going to do number 5, and then I'm going to do number 13, and then we're going to move on to lesson 4.4. Okay? So number 5, here, let me just write it down. So we have 7 and 5 over 12 minus negative 3 3/4. Now in the book, they put the parentheses there just to make it visually so that we could see that we're subtracting a negative number, okay? But I would like you to recognize that we have a double negative here, so therefore, in your mind, you can kind of get rid of those parentheses, okay? And you can turn this into a positive or an addition operation, okay? Because we have a double negative there. When we subtract a negative, double negative becomes positive, okay? So we're going to straight up add these, just like, so this is much like what we just did with adding rational numbers, same idea. So step 1, I'm going to turn these both into mixed numbers, okay? So 12 times 7, let's see, 70, and then 84, so 12 times 7, 84, and then plus 5, 89. Let me just check that. Cool, yeah, alright. 89 over 12, and then plus, we have 4 times 3, and then plus 3, okay? So 12, and then plus 3 is 15 over 4. Now we can't quite add these yet, right? I need both denominators to be the same. So I have to think of the lowest common multiple, which is actually 12 in this case. So I don't need to change anything to this, okay? I just have to change the 4. I have to make it 12, because 12 is the lowest common multiple. So I need to multiply this by 3, multiply this by 3, right? This will give us, now remember the first fraction won't change, 89 over 12 plus 45 over 12. Now we just need to add 89 and 45. So this would be 120, and then plus 5, 13, so 134, I believe. Always like to double check though. Okay, over 12, and then we're going to divide. So I'm going to be like, how many times does 12 go into 134? And let's use long division for this. Alright, so divided by 12. Go with the digits that you can work with. So 12 goes once into 13. Minus that, 12 minus 13 is 1. You bring the 4 down. 12 goes one time into 14, right? 12 times 1 is 12, and then you get 2 as a remainder. Cool. So remember, it goes in 11 times, 2 is the remainder, and 12 stays as the denominator, but we can still reduce this, okay? Greatest common factor is 2. Divide the top and bottom by 2, okay? So this becomes 11 and 1/6. That is your final answer. Alright, so let's do number 13. Number 13 says, evaluate x minus y if x is negative 5 1/4, okay, and y is negative 6.8. So this is basically to say that x represents negative 5 1/4 and y represents negative 6.8. So they're trying to prepare us to plug in or replace variables. These are called variables. These letters in pre-algebra and algebra, they're called variables, to replace variables with some number value, okay? So we basically just need to replace x with negative 5 1/4 and y with negative 6.8. So let's go ahead and do that, shall we? So this becomes, x is negative 5 1/4 minus, always keep the operation of what's happening, minus negative 6.8. Now I have to erase this because I'm kind of running out of space here. Okay. Can we see? Oh, okay, great. Now, let's recognize that we have a double negative here. We're subtracting a negative number, so that's going to turn into a plus, okay? Now, we're like, alright, we have a fraction and a decimal. They both need to be in the same form. They both either need to be fractions or decimals. Now, since we have a nice 1/4 there, we know that that's 0.25, okay? It's a nice terminating decimal, nice clean decimal, okay? So decimals are easier to deal with than fractions, so we might as well make this into a decimal, right? So here, this is going to become negative, always follow, always keep track of your signs, 5.25, right? Because 1/4 is 0.25 plus 6.8. Now, when we have a negative number and we're adding a positive number, the trick is to do big number minus small number and keep the sign of the bigger digits, right? So I'm going to do 6.8 minus 5.25, and my number is going to be positive. Why? Let me just kind of explain real quick. Let's say I'm at 5.25 here. I want to add 6.8. I'm going to pass 0 because, if I add 5.25, I'll get 0, right? So if anything more than that, I'm going to land in the positive zone, but it's going to be like a smaller number, right? So that's why we subtract. So let's go ahead and subtract 6.8 minus 5.25. Put a 0 in the blank space. Go ahead and borrow. Math is very kind, right? They borrow things from each other. So here we go. And 1. So 1.55 would be our final answer. You can say 1.55, but it's technically not 55, because 55 is 55.0, so it's 1.55. That's the answer for number 13. And oh wow, we're about to move on to section 4.4. All right, great.